Eddie Jurgensen watched and waited. Downtown Hartford came alive around him, across the bleary blue February afternoon. Main Street began to buzz. Barkers announced the evening's big event in drawn New England accents. Top-hatted and bonneted Republicans mingled and chatted. A stained worker from Hank's illuminating store piled kerosene-stinking torches atop an old wagon. No one paid much attention to the gawky, foppish 19-year-old on his perch outside the textile shop where he worked, ate, and boarded. With his big dark eyes and his buzzard profile, his natty new coat and a loud plaid shirt, Eddie looked the part of the puckish young clerks busily swooping around Hartford's downtown. But even as the hubbub picked up and crowds filled out, Eddie kept his eyes on his prize. In a few hours, the brawling Kentucky abolitionist Cassius M. Clay was due to speak, to kick off Connecticut's spring gubernatorial race. It would be the first significant race of the 1860 presidential election cycle, closely watched nationwide in an age before polling. To cap off the evening, Hartford's Republicans planned a procession back to Clay's rooms at the Allen House Hotel. Through pestering reminders in the newspapers, local leaders had gathered up torches used for previous marches, recovered from closets and attics. Hank's illuminating store trimmed them, filled them, and prepared to distribute them for the march after Clay's lecture. Eddie Jurgensen worried that the torches might disappear just as fast, snatched up by multitudes waiting for the main event. And though 2 years too young to vote, he wanted in on what was coming, so he watched for the moment when Hank's wagon driver was distracted. Then he darted forward, yanked a metal torch top off its wooden staff, and stuffed it under his coat, disappearing into Talcott and Post's textile shop. Inside that dim, rambling building, past rows piled with Persian rugs, past hoop-skirt frames and rolls of French velour, past the taxidermied crocodile that old Mr. Talcott kept to scare children, Eddie found his fellow clerks. Opening his coat, he displayed his prize, the stolen torch, but also a nasty slick of oil staining his new garment. The 5 young clerks chuckled at Eddie's luck. The crocodile grinned. Grumbling, Eddie marched to the rolls of fabrics and cut himself 1.5 yards of treated black cambric, shiny and crinkly on its waterproofed side. Working carefully, he threaded a cord onto a long steel needle and got to sewing something very novel for a political campaign. 30 years later, in practically another lifetime, Edgar S. Jurgensen would be celebrated as one of America's finest designers. With studios in Hartford and New York, the older man would curate interiors for Theodore Roosevelt and Thomas Edison. He made his name renovating the White House in the 1890s, discussing decor with presidents and first ladies. He installed the executive mansion's first electrical lighting system and enlivened its stodgy Victorian walls and draperies with bold color schemes. Can it be a coincidence that the boy who launched American democracy's most striking, most visually composed political movement grew up to be a celebrated designer, always dressed in sharply tailored suits? The man who lit and draped the White House in the 1890s got his start 3 decades before, working with torches and capes. And while his later palette favored the pale blues, lemon yellows, and sunrise pinks of the Gilded Age, when Eddie Jurgensen created the Wide Awakes in 1860, he was working in the starker hues of that earlier era.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.